Welcome to the Tiger's Den. This is the voice of Cheryl, and I am Toothless Tiger. Well, I have a beautiful show planned for you guys this evening. I want you all to meet a very beautiful and special young lady who have who has achieved a lot in her life. I'm going to give you her history, and then I will bring her in. Today, welcome Dr. Tiffany Clark. Tiffany Clark, a 2007 DeSoto High School alumni, and that's DeSoto, Texas, for all the people that are not in Texas. Tiffany has a bachelor's degree from the University of Houston. She holds a master's in community and school counseling from the University of North Texas, as well as a doctoral degree from Abilene Christian University, where she focused on conflict resolution. And boy, do we need conflict resolution. Tiffany co-founded Project EDGE, Excelling Dreams and Goals, in 2012 at DeSoto High School, a career service event that connects high school students with successful community leaders in a variety of career fields. The successful program linked over 500 students with opportunities for higher education and success outside of the walls of the classroom. Project EDGE was hailed as a model community partnership when DeSoto ISD received the College Readiness Gear Up grant from the Department of Education, resulting in over $7 million for DeSoto students. In 2017, Tiffany was to serve, excuse me, Tiffany was elected to serve on the DeSoto ISD school board as the youngest female ever to serve. In 2019, she was a recipient of the Dallas Business Journal Top 40 Under 40 cohort. In 2020, Tiffany was selected to participate in the Leadership TASB program, which is a year-long educational leadership journey. In 2021, she was the recipient of the inaugural class of the Texas Coalition of Black Democrats 40 Under 40 elected officials and community leaders. When she is not serving on the school board, she is managing her business, Accomplished Experience LLC, where custom beauty, desserts, and teas meet for an accomplished experience. Let me explain. Whether you want a custom tea, a savory sweet snack, or a custom beauty look, which leaves you feeling empowered, book with Tiffany and she will make it happen. Recently, she just published her first children's book titled Being Different Makes You Unique. See, Toothless, unique. Tiffany also runs a nonprofit leadership development program in partnership with Christy Brown titled Elevating Dreams by Hearts. And that Hearts is HEARTS, helping education adolescents through relationship, time, and support. The program mission is to educate teen girls to exhibit self-awareness, to be effective leaders, and to display a sense of compassion and empathy to fellow citizens. Tiffany was a high school counselor for the past 5 years and has served as a middle school counselor the past 2 years. She is an active member of Friendship West here in Dallas, Texas, and is pretty engaged as a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Inc., Epsilon Lambda Omega chapter. Please, as I present to you, Dr. Tiffany Clark.
Good
Hello,
evening.
Dr. Clark. So glad to have you.
It is my honor and privilege and pleasure to be here with you today.
Thank you. I thought it because of who you are and what you do. I thought that you need to be known throughout the world. And that's why I asked you, would you join me uh, to let the people know who you are? Because I know all of your accomplishments. I know you. Sometimes I can't even believe you accomplished everything that you've accomplished, but you do it with ease, and you, and it just seems so easy and so simple. So I have a few questions, and people will join us. You can share this now. I don't really know how to tell you to share it, but you should be able to see. Or let me see, when it comes up like a regular YouTube. See, I'm not too good. Greg always telling me us old folks ought to stay off of this social media. But his mother, she had to do her own thing. So I cannot figure out how to do it. And you're gonna hear the ding ding. That's people trying to help me out. They're always trying to help me out. So I be trying to do my thing on the show as well as, and I'm just trying to pull this up to see if it'll come up on my other screen, and it's not coming up on my other screen, so I can tell you how to share it. But I'm not going to worry about that. But what I'd like to do is, let me see here.
It's okay. Once it's published to YouTube, we'll just reshare it out and keep sharing it.
Okay, that sounds real good. I know you have a pretty big following. Okay, so we're going to start with questions about you and how you got to be who you are today. Now, all I have to do is go back and find all of my beautiful questions that I have for you. And that's going to be a job, it looks like. But I'll find them. Don't worry about that. Let's go. First question: what do you enjoy most about your position?
Is that my school board or counseling position or all inclusive?
All inclusive.
Okay. So for school board, what I truly enjoy most is serving my community. DeSoto is where I'm from. I was raised in this city, in this town, went through DeSoto school. So for me, it's honestly an opportunity to give back into the community in which helped mold me and shape me into the person I am today. The thing I love most about counseling is empowering students to be the best version of themselves. Oftentimes, social media shows a narrative to our students about who we are and what we should be. But I feel like they need somebody in front of them who's going to tell them completely opposite of what they're seeing day in and day out on TV. So I truly believe in pushing my students to be the best version of themselves and excelling at all times, because if I'm not pushing them to thrive for excellence, then who is?
Oh,
Literally, right?
yeah,
So
that's
so
beautiful.
I'm intentional on when I talk to them and tell them, hey, you can do this. Don't stop now. Keep going. Yeah, it may be difficult today, but what's the outcome? What's your goals? What are you looking forward to? And there's always this stigma already that our kids aren't going to be productive citizens. So how can we change the narrative? How can we cultivate them to literally be a maker and a change agent?
Oh, that's fantastic. Fantastic. So then a question I have for you is, often when children have a diagnosis that greatly impacts their maturity, especially our children, they are given consequences that, while are in line with school policies, are ineffective. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so I think honestly, the parent has to become an advocate for their scholar. And I know sometimes parents don't necessarily know how to do that, but I
Mm-hmm.
think that's why you have to really understand how important it is to have that village concept, as
Mm-hmm.
well as trust. Find one trusting person on that campus. It may not be the principal, it might not be the counselor, but find a teacher that you can truly bond with and share out your experiences so that we can work together and truly partner to get that student the best experiences. Because I will tell anybody, the education system was not built for students who look like me, period. No
Mm-hmm.
matter how many times people want to change it, switch it up, it was not made. And I just spoke to a group last Friday and told them this exact thing. The education is not built for Black and brown students, which is why there's nothing in the curriculum that teaches us about our own history, right? Nor
Mm-hmm.
are these systems and practices for us. I mean, there's too many times where they say, "Oh, wow, a student was fighting. Let's go ahead and just put them out," right? But have we really looked at the root of the problem? Because sometimes you have to dig a little bit deeper. And you can't just take surface level and say, "Oh, the kid was acting out. Oh, this kid is behavior issue." Sometimes it's not necessarily a behavior issue. Sometimes it's an adult issue.
Exactly right. I agree with that
And
100%.
and as an adult, you have to figure out and understand what is causing this kid to act out like this, right? So for me, I challenge the kids. Like when I see them acting, I'm like, "Hey, so what's up? What's the problem? What's the real issue?" Because you can say, good example. I had a kid last week who was acting out of the normal, like just wasn't himself, and I was like, "Hey, come holler at me. What's going on?" And they was like, "Oh, well, I just had to put my dog down." Okay, so you
Mm,
have real issues. And my question to them was, why didn't you let me know so that I could then tell your teachers, "Hey, he might need a chill day today. Like,
mm-hmm.
let him be." And then he was like, "Oh, I didn't even really think about it, you know?"
He
And then,
probably didn't even know he could do that.
but well, I think he did know because we have a good relation. Him and I have a good relationship. But
Okay.
I think I wasn't there the day before because
Mm-hmm.
um and so when I wasn't, I don't think I was there. And so when I did get back to campus, I asked him like, "Hey, what happened yesterday?" And then that's when he told me. But again, I also communicated that to parents in the beginning of the school year. Hey, if you know your scholar is having a rough day, or if you know something happened at home and it just wasn't a good environment, or the kid got out the car angry, go ahead and send me an email, send me a text message, because most of the parents have my cell phone number. And I say, "Hey, let me know. Hey, today is a handle with care." And that's what I preface it with, handle with care. So I
Okay.
know to send out to the parent, to the teachers, and say, "Hey, today I need you to handle this student with care." And the teachers know at that moment they might be having a rough day. So I have to do extra check-ins with this scholar.
Oh, okay. That's really good to know. We have a thing here on YouTube where we salute our people that support us. And so let me just take a moment and say salute to and a shout out to Lady DJ, to Laura, my daughter, to Wilma, my right hand, to Carolyn Jones. Hello, Carolyn. Miss Maggie. Hello, Miss Maggie. Love you. Tanae, salute. Phyllis, salute. She's here because Tiffany's here. Well, she looks sometime. I'm just being funny. Jen Lynn, salute. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Okay, Maria S. That's another one of my nieces. I have a lot of nieces and nephews now on YouTube. They show me so much love, and I thank you guys. Joe, salute. Let me see. Longhead, that's my nephew. Salute. And I think that's everybody here. I just want to make sure that I acknowledge you guys and thank you
Hey
all for
y'all.
joining us. Okay. Okay, Dr. Clark, I have another question.
Mhm.
How can you help us to help you make changes for our kids to have a better outcome?
I think honestly, for the residents of DeSoto, we need them to get more involved. And I just think holistically, we have to come together as a people and support students in general, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that means we need more people volunteering at the schools. The problem is you miss that village component. In all honesty, it's truly, and I keep saying the village because I feel like the village has been lost. I
Yes.
remember when I was in school, my neighbors were part of the village. Everybody in our whole neighborhood literally was the village. You had
Mm-hmm.
your aunties, your uncles, your grandparents. Everybody was part of the village. And
Mm-hmm.
and when your parents couldn't get there, that village came through for you. But
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes now I see nobody wants a village because nobody wants you to talk to their kids but the parent.
That's it.
And instead of parents supporting and partnering with us, they're against us so many times that it's even hard. So at that rate. So for me, I say get involved. Like, even if you don't have a kid, find a way to volunteer at a school. We are always looking for volunteers to hop in, join us, and just be supportive for different things, whether that's lending reading to the kids, um tutoring if you have a skill set, doing a craft if you're crafty in something, bringing that talent to a school.
Mm-hmm.
I love building partnerships with people, because that's how our kids grow. They can't become what they can't see,
Tell the
right?
truth.
So if nobody exposes them, or nobody chooses to pour into our young people, we'll never be able to, build this generation of kids up. So for me, I honestly would encourage people: one, show up to the schools; two, get involved; and most importantly, volunteer.
Okay. Let me see. A couple of people joined us. I want to say salute Yam Life. Shout out to you. I saw somebody, Tammy Williams, salute. Thank you for joining us. Overthoughts. I must have overlooked you, but I just seen that someone spoke to you. So you know I don't want to overlook you because you always support me. So thank you so very much. D Troop, salute. I'm glad you're here. Gotti, love you, girl. Let me see. I think I've covered everybody. You know, Dr. Clark, that is really, your answers are so on point and so apropos because Maria S. Salute. But they're so apropos because I think a lot of people today, they're so easy and so quick to write off the children by saying these kids today, you can't do this. But I think we've lost the concept of the village. So is it the kids or is it the village? And I think it's, a component of both. But it is so good to hear you as an educator and a person that actually work with the children take the empathy that you have, and you can just feel it through the camera that you really care about these children. And I guess that's what makes you such a great achiever, because just to hear the way you speak on the children, it sounds loving and it doesn't sound condemning. And I think that was when I was in school, we had teachers that looked like us, you know what I'm saying? And but one of the problems the teachers that looked like us had, um, they would love to tell you, I got mine. Now you got to get yours. And that was such a turnoff for a student to have to hear that from a teacher, because we used to really reverence our teachers. We thought they were, like gods, but there was a selected few that really cared about the children, like you're expressing here.
But
Uh,
you know why I think that may be though? Is because sometimes the kids, they don't care. So if you see a kid who just constantly doesn't care, or they are lashing out in class, then that's the teacher's go to, because they're like, well, if you're not going to, give us what we need, or if you're going to be a disrupt to my class, who are you really hurting? You're
mm-hmm.
hurting yourself. You're not hurting me. And sometimes that's the hard part about being literally in that field, is you have to figure out the balance
Yes.
of when to tell the kids, hey, I know you're not doing X, Y, and Z, or to tell them, hey, I have mine. Because a lot of times the kids, well, I will say this: some of my students say I'm too hard on them, right? And they'll say, "Oh, you want us to be perfect." And I tell them, "I don't want you to be perfect. I want you to be excellent, because perfection is impossible. But
Mm-hmm.
excellent, we can all strive to be excellent within us.
Yes.
That's how you move and shake.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you become the best version of yourself. Is always putting your best foot forward. But
Mm-hmm.
students miss that component because they feel like society honestly has already told them, just continue to act out, continue to be a clown, and it's gonna be all right, instead of telling them and having them hard conversations and saying, in order to truly evolve and to be great, you have to step outside of what you're accustomed to and what
Mm-hmm.
you're used to seeing, to be different and do something differently.
Okay, so Laura asked the question,
Mhm.
and what she'd like to know is what advice would you give to bridge the gap for our children?
Bridging the gap between who?
And that, I don't know if we're talking about the parent and the child or the child. Laura, elaborate on that so that I can understand what the question is so that we can answer it correctly. We have some kids, that seem to be rebellious. I normally liken it to something that's going on in the home, but sometimes it could be something, going on. I know when I was growing up, what I would share. Salute, Brianna. Today's youth and their parents. So this is really kind of, yeah, where I thought it was going. But for me, like when I was growing up, and I shared on my second video how I became Toothless Tiger. You had bullies in school, and God forbid if you were the bully, but I was not the bully. But what would happen is you had this one person that dominated everything, and if they would tell people not to talk to you, I don't give a damn who you were. The entire class, let's go by grade. If you were in the third grade, so the entire third grade, and we used to have alphabets, 3A, 3B. I mean, all the way up to wherever you went in the alphabet. The boys wouldn't talk to your ass. The girls did. And almost the teachers seemed like they wouldn't talk to your ass. It just seemed like everybody was real mean and harsh. But she was talking about bridging the gap between the parent and the children. And let's say that you should have
Okay.
a kid that's having problems and not going to school and doing what they should be doing. What can you do to bridge that gap between the parent and the child?
So that's a good question because nowadays we do see a lot of parents who are just like, I don't know what to do with my kid. They're out of control. And honestly, I tell the parents to go back to the old school method, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know sometimes people will be like, "Oh, well those punishments were too harsh." But we turned out okay. At the
Yeah.
end of the day, we're all right. So I tell my parents, be firm with your students. Stop giving them everything they're asking for. Like we had to work for the stuff we got. It wasn't just, oh, you acted out in school today. Oh, I'm gonna take your cell phone for a day. No, first of all, we didn't have cell phones. um, I remember getting my first cell phone when I was in high school, and at that time I thought I was amazing, not realizing the kids these days have them in second grade.
Mm-hmm.
So where at what point do you set boundaries with your kids? And I'm not a parent, so I can't tell a parent how to be a parent. But what I can do is suggest strategies to them.
Mm-hmm.
Um which can include literally setting firm boundaries with your students. Give them expectations. That bar has gone away, right?
Okay.
People no longer set expectations with their students. So for me, when I get to work, I tell my students you have to make an 80 or above. And they're like, "Well, my mama didn't tell me I had to make no 80 or above." Great. So now this is why you have to do it. So at what point are we going to literally change the narrative, right? When
Yeah.
I was growing up, my dad, I couldn't make C's. Like that was the expectation in our house. The expectation was also um to make sure you came home and did your homework before you went outside. So again, having those conversations early on and telling your kids what you expect of them, but also affirming your kids. So many
Mhm.
parents are naysayers to their kids. They yelling at them, they cursing at them, they telling them what they can and cannot do. But have you affirmed your kid? You are smart. You can do this. You will succeed. You are determined to be successful. You are talented. Are you affirming your kid? Because if you're not affirming your kid and you're only being negative, they're not going to trust you and they're not going to talk to you and they're not going to support you. And the relationship is broken already. So you have to set expectations but affirm them at the same time. And you can do that by being firm with your students
Yes.
or child, I guess.
Yeah. Well, Phyllis said that teachers need to know how to show they care, not how much they know about a subject. Kids do not care how much you know. They need to know how much you care. Show love, not talk about it.
That
That's
is that is that is true. So when I was a teacher in the classroom,
mm-hmm.
I made sure I would try to figure out my student schedules outside of school and in school. So if they play sports, I tried to get to their games.
Okay.
If they were involved in, like, I had one student when I was a teacher, she was in Black Academy of Arts, downtown. So
Mm-hmm.
I would go to her shows. At that point, she realized, oh, she don't really care about just her science class. She cares about the whole student. And I find that true. Like, the more you build relationships with students, the
Mm-hmm.
better are they'll perform for you. Which is why I still have those connections and those relationships with some of my first year students from 10 years ago,
That's
because
beautiful.
we built that relationship then, right? So through their trajectory of life, I mean, they all just graduated college, and it's come,
Mm-hmm.
and they like, look, Dr. Clark, I'm graduating, look at this, and vice versa. Like, they've been there. Half of my first year students served on my first campaign, because they was like, oh no, we need you, we need, yeah. And then they were telling me then in 2017, your class was the hardest class I had, and that was in eighth grade. And I'm like, well, that's a problem, because your eighth grade class shouldn't have been harder than your high school classes.
mm.
But they were like, literally, you didn't play with us, you set expectations, but yet you showed up. And it wasn't always easy, but at the end of the day, it's exactly what Phyllis said. You have to build that relationship with them. You have to show them you care.
Okay. And what Laura was saying in detail, I want to say and welcome Dr. Maggie in, and I wanted to say salute, and I'm so glad that you're here. Toolbox, I want to say salute, and I'm glad that you're here. Um, Please hit the like button for me and share this video if you would, and feel free to comment or if you have a question or whatever. And always feel free to hit the Cash App; it's still available. Uh, Ryder, I'm glad you're here. Salute. So I want to tell you what Dr. Maggie said because he said something. And what Laura was saying. Dr. Maggie said that I feel like we should understand our children mentally to best guide them to being productive humans.
Absolutely.
Carolyn Jones said, I agree with the balance of old school and self accountability. And Carolyn is a life coach professional. So, you know, that accountability is something that they really teach. Let me see.
Absolutely.
She said, a strong sense of self authenticity is a must so they can be confident to know their power.
But I think that starts with the parents. The parents have to establish and give those kids that confidence, because whatever you pour into them at home translates to what they do at school, in all honesty. So
Yes.
it takes that person to say, like I remember, like, my grandma was my biggest fan, right? Like, rest in heaven to my granny. But
Mhm.
literally it will be like, oh, Tiffany, my y'all don't know about my grandbaby. She the smartest thing walking. Now, in my mind, I'm far from the smartest person. But let her tell it, I was the smartest. But when you hear that as a kid, you grow up with that mentality. Oh, I might be smart then, because my granny told me I was smart. And you literally carry that with you every single day. And I mean, for me, that's how I became doctor. Like, I would literally, as a young girl, playing Barbies with my homegirls, would sign my name, Dr. Clark. So it became established in my mind, in my brain at that point. So I had no choice but to follow through with it. So what are parents literally pouring into their kids early on? And are
Yes.
they reading with their kids? Are you spending that time? I know the world is crazy. We all have 15 jobs. I get it. But you still have to find that time to pour into your kids.
And I think that's what a lot of people in our neighborhoods are missing, you know, because I don't think we do enough to prepare them for the beginning. I'm not talking about the end stages. I'm talking about when they're little and they're at home, what you could be doing to build their skill set. Like in teaching them the alphabet, the number, not just to sing it, but to be able to know it when you see it, and to be able. I think if we could spend more time giving them phonics so that they can sound out, because that's your biggest key. If you learn how to sound out those alphabets, and if you learn what they are, reading really will be fundamental. It would be as easy as opening your mouth and talk.
It
And I
is.
think a lot of us miss that. And then we don't, and by the time our kids get to that stage, after the third grade, if you don't know how to read, then you're messed up for the rest of your life almost, because you learn to read up to the third grade. And after that, you read to learn. So,
But I think our community is also too plagued on the idea of what you look like instead of what's
mhm,
inside of you.
okay.
So the more our community is infatuated with how we look on the
Hmm.
outside instead of pouring into, I've never owned a pair of Jordans in my life.
Me neither.
And I'm just, that wasn't my thing. My parents would buy my shoes from Payless growing up, and I
Hmm.
was fine. But so many times now, parents are infatuated with what does my kid look like. But
Yeah.
instead of spending all that money on what your kid look like, buy them some books early on. We
Hmm.
had dictionaries and thesauruses that
Yes.
I had a whole children's dictionary that my mom literally would bring out every day. So what you read out this dictionary today? So
Hmm.
it's like how when did that stop happening is the real question. Like
Hmm.
when did it become okay, I guess, to start just buying and putting our kids in all these fashionable clothes instead of buying them getting them tutors, right? So we missed
I think
the component.
I think crack cocaine did that to us, because that's when we start producing big money makers in the hood. And then
Mhm.
when you have the big money makers, of course, then you start seeing the big, foreign cars. You start seeing all the jewelry, and you start seeing the designer, the Jordans, and the knickknacks, and all of the good Vera Wang and all of that kind of stuff. So I think that's kind of what started it. And then we started getting these flea markets everywhere, and then they're selling the knockoffs, and every woman had to have Dooney and Burke, and she had to have a Coach, and she had to have a Louis Vuitton. Now she don't have shit to go in either one of those purses, but she had to have all of those things in order for her to feel like a woman. So I think that's where we lost the connection, because we start getting more commercialized in the hood, in the projects, because a lot of the moms had the dope boys for the boyfriends, and they would come there and sell the dope, and so the kids kind of was like by the wayside. But I think that's where some of that happened. Laura said, I want to go back to what she was asking, between the schools and parents getting their kids the attention and the education they need, if they have been labeled as, something like, let's say, a gang member, or uh, I don't know what other kind of label, maybe problems, special ed, or bully, or whatever. How can the school and the parents get the attention and the education that the kid needs after being labeled as something with a negative connotation?
So if a student is getting a label such as a special education student, a 504 student, honestly, those are put in place to help students succeed. Um, in my personal opinion, not all of our kids need those tools. Our kids
Hmm.
need to understand how to be focused. But focus
Hmm.
again starts at home.
At home.
So it's easy for us to say we're mad at the school system for giving our kids these labels, but what did we put in place ahead of time to make sure that our student does not fall into this trap? And I
Mm,
think a lot of it is the foundational things that we just talked about. Um,
exactly.
is are you reading to your kid? Because most of the time, kids who get in bed in the beginning, it's because their behavior problems or they can't read. Those are the
Hmm.
biggest two things of how kids get classified as special education.
And we
Now,
actually allow them to do that. Hmm.
correct. Nowadays, they're getting put in 504, which is another layer. If they have ADHD or ADD, well, the problem is everybody has ADHD and
That's
ADD.
suggestive. Yeah, it's all suggestive.
we all, none of us can stay focused for a long period of time if you're
That's
gonna be
right.
honest. But how do you redirect yourself, right? So
Hmm.
instead of parents saying, oh, my kid, I also don't believe that every kid needs to be on medicine for it either.
They
Yes,
don't.
there are some kids who might need it, but just because you go to a doctor's office and they say, oh, your baby ADHD, let's give him some Ritalin. No, that ain't good for everybody. You
That's
have
true.
to know the balance. But as parents, you have to spend time with your kid, because if
Hmm.
you don't spend time with your kid, you're going to allow the school to put whatever label on this kid without you having insight and intel to the situation. And that's
Hmm.
and that's the
Dangerous.
sad
That's
part and the
dangerous.
reality
Yeah.
of it. and
Yeah.
and there's I see it day in and day out. Like, parents will say, oh, my kid has these kind of problems. Oh, but y'all saying they do this at school, but they don't do that at home. My question to them is always, but how often are you really at home? How much
Hmm.
time are you spending at home to really know what your kid does and what your kid doesn't do? So,
And if you're home, are you present? Because see, sometimes your body can be there, but you're not there. And so, we have some parents, um, they're at home, but they're in their room with the door closed and don't disturb me. And so they don't know nothing that goes on outside of that door.
and the
And the
kid is
kid
on
is
their
pretty much
iPhone or the
left to them.
tablet.
Yeah, the kid is pretty much
Absolutely.
left to itself.
Absolutely. So when those things happen, right? It's
Hmm.
like there's this hindsight is, I don't know my kid because you telling me they doing this, but they don't do that at the house. But then again, are you really with this kid when they're at home? Because if
Hmm.
you are not intentional and spending time with this kid, you'll never know. So what I suggest that, and I tell people, is have a real conversation with the counselor. But you can't be afraid of the conversation either, because so many times parents will come to my office and they'll want a suggestion, but then honestly, when I give them a suggestion, they run and tell my principal.
They
So,
really don't want it.
because you really don't want the truth, and that's the problem when you have a counselor like myself, is I'm not going to sugarcoat the situation with you. I'm going to tell you what you need to do in order to truly help your child. But everybody's not ready for that conversation.
You're so very right about it, and so one day we're gonna have to, have you back for real though, because this is really so very serious. Because I can just look at things and see things, and just how different it is for when I was in school, for when my son was in school, and from now, the grandkids by way, of Laura's children in school. But I put things on parents because one thing I know, if you don't get the parents' involvement, you can't really get the children. And see, I'm one of these people, I never heard when I was growing up what stays on in the house, what goes on in the house stays in the house. I heard that shit about Vegas. I didn't hear that about my home. So if you're telling a kid what goes on in the home stays in the home, that means that there's some secrets going on in the home. And when you have secrets, you're only as sick as your secrets, and the kid can't function because the kid is not an adult and they can't differentiate. But you said don't say nothing, and they bet not say nothing. So that causes conflict. So, Phyllis used to work with the kids at the church, and I would tell her, unless you get those parents buy in, because kids really gravitate to people like you that show them love and will listen to them. And then the parent get angry and jealous because now they think the kid telling their secrets and that they smoke weed, and then they got the boyfriend coming in and out, and the kid just so happy that you accepting them, they'll do whatever you ask them to do. But therein lies the problem. We have to get these parents involved in whatever way that we can get them involved. And then if
And
they
that
need help, get them some help.
but that's exactly what happens though, right? So
Hmm.
I have literally I have a couple of parents actually who have told their children, do not talk to her anymore. And
Hmm.
and the problem is because one at one point their kid was probably going home like, Dr. Clark did this today, Dr. Clark did this today, and Dr. Clark told me this. But then that the moment that the kid actually has a true crisis, and I have to call the parent and tell the parent, hey, you have to go get your child some help. At that moment, the parent told the student, don't you ever talk to her again.
Ain't that
So
something? Let me stop for 1 second and acknowledge Maria S. for the Cash App. Thank you, Maria, for the Cash App. Okay.
that's exactly what you said. So parents, they really don't want what's in the best interest of their kids because
Hmm.
it allows them to play into the narrative that nobody cares. Because the
Exactly.
moment you actually care and something has to change on the parent end, it's really a problem,
Yeah, it's a
right?
big problem.
And if you don't buy into parents, some of the parents like drama. Like at the end of
Hmm.
the day, school is not a place for drama. So if you automatically, me as a counselor, I'll talk to the kids if it's a pressing issue, and then not that he says she say stuff, because that he say she say stuff is unnecessary drama to me.
Hmm.
And I feel like our kids need to learn that now, because if you don't learn it now, you gonna get caught up in it in your 30s and 40s and 50s, still walking
Exactly.
around talking about he said, she said, and you don't like this person because of that. Like, you don't have time for that. And I tell my students, in order to be successful, you really don't have time for drama. If you are focused on your books, you can't get
Hmm.
caught up in drama. If you don't
Hmm.
have all A's and B's, you shouldn't even be in no drama, because
You
your
shouldn't
time
even
should
be
be put
talking
to
to
school.
nobody.
You can't beef with nobody, literally. Like, how you beefing and you can't read? Like, you have to figure out the real solution and the problem. but
Yeah.
but parents don't like when you say that. But it's
Yes.
like, I can't buy into your kid's narrative and feel like I need to address this kid's issue with this other kid right now. I need them in class learning.
Okay.
But
That's
parents
that's.
don't like that.
But I can believe that, and I can see the problem. Phyllis said that it's all special education, but we need to know your child and know how your child learn. 504 is for extra attention, such as maybe need more time with test or need glasses or can't hear well. So we need to know, and that's another thing. We don't really know the functions and what's going on at the school because we don't go to any of the PTA meetings. We don't want to know the teachers. We don't try to, get a report. One thing I did when Greg was going to school every year, even up when he was in the 12th grade, I went every year and met all the teachers. And when he was about in the 10th or 11th, he was really ready for my ass to stay at home, but I wouldn't do it. I still would go and meet the teachers, and then I would participate. I didn't go to a lot of the meetings, but I would participate so that they would know, and they all had my number, that he had someone here that cares about him. Now I couldn't help him with nothing. I had to get him some help because only thing I can do well is talk. I couldn't help him with no math and all that good stuff. He did very good on his own, but I did what I could, and then I had Derry and them around, and all of them to help him succeed, and he did a great job. And
But I think that's the foundation, though, is just showing up and being
yeah,
present. Like, the moment a parent shows up and says, hey, how can I partner with the school? That changes everything for a school. Like, at that
okay,
point, we know you are here to partner with us and to help your child. But if you, like, for me, like this past school year, I did two parent conferences
okay.
a week apart. And so that gave plenty of parents opportunities to meet with all the kids. I still had parents that who were like, "Oh, well, I didn't have time." But I gave you
Mm,
literally two different times to have
mm,
parent conferences. And you said I didn't have time. No, you didn't make time for your kid.
that's sad. Carolyn said exactly. We were at all of our children's school functions, meetings, extracurricular activities. And then Phyllis says a good point. At that point, you must ask the parent, how can I help you to try to get the parent what they need? And Gotti says, know your many humans. The parent has to know there are many humans. And then Carolyn M says, secrets destroy families. They do.
They
But
do.
we can get past that. We can get past that. Let's go to another question. I want to ask the question, please tell us about what motivated you to write your book, um, the name of your book, and how long did it take you to complete the transcript?
All right. So the title of the book is "Being Different Makes You Unique," and it's
Okay.
a children's book about my story. Um, I mean, without I mean, so the story is about me being adopted. Oftentimes people feel like adopted kids or foster kids don't necessarily make it out to the next level. So I wanted to write this book to inspire people who have gone through the adoption process that it's okay. Like, you don't have to have the same family ties and function to people around you in order to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's so many times we think just if you only come from that nuclear family,
Mm-hmm.
that you can succeed, right? And I think that's a problem and a misconception.
Okay.
Um, and it took, honestly, to write the book, it
Mm-hmm.
may have taken me 2 days.
What?
um and that's just so I wrote the book while I was in doctoral school. So when I
Okay.
wasn't working on my dissertation, I needed something to do. And I
Mm-hmm.
know that sounds crazy to write a book while you're writing a book, literally. but but it was my escape.
Okay.
It allowed me to look within myself and figure out how I can share out and resonate with people who are so ashamed to talk about things like adoption and foster care. So I channeled that the angry dissertation that was getting on my nerves to a happy place of inspiring other kids and people.
Oh, yeah, it was a beautiful book. I read the book and I really loved it. Matter of fact, I got one of the first ones and it was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Thank
I
you.
want to say salute to RLG. He's listening in. Hopefully he's still with us. I saw Jerome, my other nephew, Jerome Biggums. I want to say salute Jerome. I have to just salute the people that come in. And I want to thank you, Penn, for the Cash App. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it. Okay, let me see. Laugh out loud. My ladies knew I was crazy. This is Gotti. And she said, my ladies knew I was crazy and I was crazy about them. Number one rule I had, please don't ever make me have to come up to a school because you don't know how to act. So that's
That's
what
right.
helps her children.
We need parents. We need that. We need that energy back in. We need that energy for real back in the schools.
Okay. So Wilma wants to know, how did you get your book published?
How did I get my book published? So I surround myself with a lot of mentors. I have a mentor in every aspect, every component of my life. And I was just grateful that I literally had somebody who had already published several books who said, Tiffany, I will help you publish your book. And literally, he took me by the wings and helped me publish my book. And that is no other than Dr. Jamal Rashid,
Mm,
who I also am a
fantastic.
co-author in one of his books, Nightmare at the Lorraine Hotel. So
Mm.
I had a mentor who said, "You ready? I got you." And that's literally how we published it, and we use Amazon.
That sounds like a hell of a title, Nightmare at the Lorraine Hotel. I don't know if y'all talking about Martin Luther King or something else happened at the Lorraine, but
We
that's
do
a hell of a
actually.
title.
So that, yeah, the book Nightmare at the Lorraine is, in hindsight, where would Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. say we are now? What do you think his take would be on where we are as a society? Where have we grown as a culture, or are we still honestly in those times where he was murdered? So it's literally diving back into that and trying to figure out, are we where we really were supposed to be? Did we accomplish his dream, or are we literally still trying to fight the dream?
Well, I think, and of course, this show is about my opinion. So I think that in hindsight, if he were alive, we wouldn't be where we are today, because right before, he was assassinated, one of the reasons they assassinated him is because when he came clean on selling us out, and that now he realized that's what he did. Whether he was bamboozled food or did it on purpose, but he realized his mistake, and that's one of the reasons that he's no longer with us. And so I
Yeah.
think we would have been a different people because he started telling us, if you listen to the last speech, he lets us know that they wrote us a blank check and that, we are exiled in our own land and we're thinking we come from somewhere, but this is where we were. This is where we are. So I think we would be a little different. I just wished somebody else would, and I mean individually. See, I don't look for leaders because you have to be the leader in your army. That's the way I feel. And anytime you look for anything outside of you, then you're looking to be disappointed or to be sold out. And that's what happens when we group up. I love the village concept because we all can look after one another. But anytime you're talking about moving forward, pushing up, growing, you kind of are setting yourself up for the big letdown. And that's why
So,
we need people like you and what you do in taking that extra step with the children because you are that living example. You are the
but
perfect
I
example.
think that also goes back to accountability though, right?
Yes.
And and how do you foresee yourself? What do you want out of yourself? How are you holding yourself accountable to obtain whatever you want to do in your life? And I think so many people rely on exactly what you said, other people pulling them up and guiding them and pushing them to excel instead of saying, what can I do internally to be great?
Okay, so now I'm going to get ready to start winding down because this is actually an hour show and I'd like to try to keep it that way. I normally talk so much that I go over, but I'm really trying to get this thing down, because we have so many different people that we support each other and stuff, and we're trying to build a village because we have a lot of a very dichotomous situation going on in the YouTube world, what they call the black sector. Uh, so I want to say, A-Ra, salute. And I seen someone else I want to salute. Lady DJ is back with the salute. I seen someone, David. David, salute. Okay, so, doctor, let me ask you a question. You are an extremely positive role model in the community. How can parents inspire the youth of today to get involved? I think you've answered all of that, but I just want to ask that question.
Yeah. So I think getting your kids involved in activities early, right? So many times we just want to put them in sports, and sports is a great foundation for learning how to work with a team, how to understand the importance of bonding, of self-confidence, and to understand you're not going to win everything. Real life, you won't win everything, but nowadays we're stuck on you have to win to succeed, and everybody gets these participation awards, which is
Mm-hmm.
hindering our kids. So I would say outside of sports, put them in other activities.
Mm-hmm.
I was grateful that my parents had me in dance, they had me in piano, they had, I mean, you name it, and y'all, I was gone as a kid. And I was involved in my church. Like, shout out to Greater Mount Olive Church of God in Christ, because we had events at the church which taught us how to speak, how to act, how to
Okay.
sing, whether you could sing or not.
Mm-hmm.
You learned, um, and and you learned everything just from that. And I know nowadays the church isn't necessarily the answer for everyone, but I would say find some way to get your kids involved in something outside of sports. We have so many different things going on nowadays. I mean, like, I would say we're hosting a summer camp at our school, that's for engineering, people, kids who want to be engineers, right?
Okay.
But YMCA, the YMCA, the Boys and Girls Club, I worked at the YMCA. They give the kids so many activities in the summertime. Like, find out how to truly get your kid into some other things. They need to understand civil service as well. You have
Mm-hmm.
NAACP Justice League for the kids nowadays. You have all these fraternities and sororities, like the Kappas are doing Kappa Camp at Paul Quinn this summer. Um, the AKAs do events, the Deltas, the SG Rose. You have all these fraternities and sororities who do summer events pouring into kids. but find a service activity for your student to do and your kid to do throughout the summer, and it will teach them honestly so many things about themselves, about life, that will help develop them into the person who they are today. I was just grateful that my parents put me in so much stuff that I was able to come out halfway decent.
And that's a beautiful thing. Let me just shout out JB Charles, salute. Dimple D, salute. A Ra, salute. I seen somebody else. Think about them facts. I love that lady. She helped me one Saturday. She spent a whole Saturday trying to teach me a little bit about this YouTube stuff. And I mean, she actually took her time and stayed on the phone with me all day. So I love it. And let me see. The secretary, salute. And David knows about Paul Quinn sound like. Yeah, David must be from around our way because he know about the garden. Okay, doctor, I'm going to ask you another question. And it always happens like this. When it's close to time for us to go, then we get more people in. But we're still going to be respectful of our time. Let me see. Okay, so we're going to ask this last question. And then I'm going to ask you, would you please come back and let's do a part two on another Tuesday?
Absolutely. Whatever Cheryl tells me to do is what I do.
Oh, you all not to say it like that. Now, see, you Toothless supposed to be this sweet little harmless little, whatever she asks. You said tell. You didn't say ask. Whatever she asks.
That's right. Whatever you tell me to do, I do. Just like whatever Phyllis tell me to do, I just do it.
And we love you for it too. And you never give us no backlash. Never.
Hey.
And I love that. I wanted to ask the question. This is a question coming from me, and then we'll go. Okay, we got people on YouTube and stuff talking about the school system and they need to get trades and coding back in school and stuff like that. And I found a lot of the schools, if you look them up, they have trades and codings in school. But what can we, as the parents, the community, do to help you as a school board member? How can we help the school board help bridge the gap between the parents and the school? You know what I'm saying? Is it something that we can do to help you guys, or how do you make your decisions? You know, did that make sense? The question
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
asking.
yeah.
Okay.
So honestly, the state of Texas now has what we call House Bill 5. House
Okay.
Bill 5 makes sure that every student has an endorsement. So an endorsement is basically their college or career pathway in which they plan on going. So it's kind of like when you go to college and you choose a major, right? It's the same thing for your high school students now. And your high school students have to choose what pathway they want to go to. So you have business and industry, you have public services, and I know I'm gonna get this wrong because I haven't done this in 3 years now. But you have five different pathways.
Mm-hmm.
And you choose which route you want to go. And you literally stay in that pathway your entire high school career. Now, a lot of them, they do have where you earn industry based certification at the end of each one of these. So, say you do public service and you take health and human track, which is typically if you want to go to be like a doctor or a nurse. So,
Mm-hmm.
you can get your phlebotomy certification, come out of high school, you making $18-$20 off top. We
Okay.
also have the automotive side. Same thing. You get your auto mechanics um certification, and here you are can go be a mechanic making $25 an hour. So the
Mm-hmm.
students are learning these trades. And a lot of schools have cosmetology, they have health and human services, which is also falls under food services. So students can
Okay.
now get their catering, they call it food serve certification, to where
Okay.
you can go work at a restaurant, work at a bar, all those things. Like there are so many things in place now. Even Google has a partnership with a lot of schools where they're making sure you're Microsoft bound and you know how to operate Google. And then
Oh.
there's so many things in place right now at these schools. And honestly, that's not necessarily a school board decision. It
Mm-hmm.
literally comes from if people want to just work in this field, in this industry. And I know for DeSoto, we have what we call District of Innovation. So if people have work experience and not necessarily a teaching certificate, they can
Mm-hmm.
come work in DeSoto and teach that pathway or that course, right?
Mm.
And not have that teacher certification, because their work experience is going to guide them to be able to educate our scholars.
Okay.
So there's so many different avenues for our kids these days, to where everybody should be walking out with something, compared
Okay.
to even when I was in school. You had to choose one pathway or the other. Like, I couldn't take cosmetology and my nurse practitioners, where I was going to the hospital and doing rotations, because
Okay.
they wouldn't allow me to do both. But now the schedules are so flexible, the kids literally have the authority and autonomy to do both.
Isn't that beautiful? Well, our time is about up. And so, what I want to do is first say, Simset, salute. Milwaukee Jeff, it's so good to see you here. Somebody else came in. I just want to acknowledge everybody before I get ready to say goodbye. But Dr. Clark, I want you to look at your schedule and see when we can do this again on a Tuesday night. We want to give them something to talk about, something to think about, and maybe they'll have some more questions. I certainly appreciate you and all of your accomplishments. You are truly a joy and a pleasure to interview. And it's not just because I know you personally. I just want to say thank you so very much. Um, Chat, I hope everybody hit the like button, and please feel free to leave a comment. Share this video with others, and subscribe. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. Every day I'm losing people, and the next day I look, I got a few new people. The next day I look, I done lost 4 people. I don't know what the hell's going on, but keep coming back. We certainly appreciate it. And I'm going to say good night to everyone. Dr. Clark, just hang with me for a minute. I want to show my beautiful outro. Gotti, if anybody has a channel, and if you want an intro and an outro, Aquamur, you see in the chat, that's Gotti. Please look her up. She's fantastic. So let me just hit my outro.
This video was made for education and entertainment purposes only. There's no malice or ill intent from the content creator. So please like, share, and subscribe, and have a great evening. Good night.